Sean, welcome back. Good to see you. What should we make of this reshuffle at the top of Ukraine's military? Is it unusual to fire and hire the top man in the middle of a war?
Jamie, I mean, it's not unusual. In the World War I, World War II, there were a lot of senior generals moved along because they get tired. They need fresh ideas. I think what's the tragedy here is that maybe it wasn't picked up by some of the earlier reports. Is Syrski's a 60-year-old. He's a sort of relic of the former Soviet Union times and therefore probably more set in his ways, even though he's had a very distinguished history, whereas Fedorov is a 35-year-old, young upstart, full of ideas, full of technology, and he's been part of this revolution that's been trying to find a way to get Ukraine away from this attritional battle on the front line, which is something, frankly, they can't win, into striking Russia using high-tech capability. And he's been very, very effective at that. The failure here, I think, is that you've got two very different beasts, and President Zelensky was the sort of making sure peace was kept between them. But Zelensky's been away a lot over the last few months, and quite frankly, when he's been away, it's pretty clear these two have not got on, and eventually one of them had to go. As it turns out, both have had to go.
Where would you say we are? I mean, the military terms as sit rep. I mean, where are we in terms of where we are with the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Are we approaching the end? Is this the beginning of the end, stalemate, or forever war? How do you judge it?
Well, that's a simple question, Jamie. It's not an easy answer. I mean, I think the war has morphed into two distinctly different areas, one of which is around the sort of northwest of the Donbass, the front line, which is the fortress cities. One of them is Kostiantynivka, and that's where Russians are pushing hard. The trouble is they're losing more people there than they can recruit. There's lots of reports that Russia's considering mobilization. You'll remember that each year they have a conscript army that people are brought in, but mobilizing means more fighting age people that you can actually put on the front line. If Russia does do that, be incredibly unpopular, but both sides are struggling with manpower there. What Ukraine has done very successfully, which is the second part of this, is take the war to Russia. You were hearing about the strikes on these warehouses. It's all designed to take the war to Russia, and the long-range strikes using long-range missiles, particularly targeting Russian energy. I was reading the other day that the ability of Russia to now create petrol and diesel has dropped to a 21-year low. And you've got to remember, that's how Putin finances this. Does that mean we're near the end of the war? Almost certainly not. But Russia's finding it more and more difficult to grind forward. And I think we are gradually approaching the day where there'll be some sort of frozen front line, because Russia will have to stop for a breather. The challenge for the Western community is make sure that frozen line doesn't unfreeze again in a few years' time.
And a thought on US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth earlier admitting the cost of the Iran conflict so far and how much more the US military will need. Do both of these conflicts in Ukraine and Iran fundamentally depend on who runs out of cash first?
No, I don't think that's quite true. I mean, I do think they're so distinctly different, Jamie. We probably don't have time to get into it. I think that the tragedy of the Iran war is that there is no military solution to the Strait of Hormuz, and that's the sticking point at the moment. America has been conducting nightly and daily strikes against Iran, but all that's doing is delaying the inevitable negotiation. That's the only way they get the Strait of Hormuz open. And besides, if you remember, the sole reason that President Trump justified that war was to stop Tehran's nuclear ambition. Well, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about the Straits. We're talking about the global energy crisis. That was not an issue before the start of the war. So I think there's an element of frustration building here from President Trump. He would have expected his military to be able to deliver strategic success. That's not been the case. And the challenge for President Trump is how does he extract his fingers from this mangle while keeping his reputation intact? Very difficult.
Sean, thank you. Sean Bell, the military analyst and former Air Vice-Marshal in the Royal Air Force.